Good morning, everyone. For those of you who were at the USW International Health and Safety Conference this year, I'm sure you remember seeing a video featuring our International President Leo Gerard. And the video talked about growing up in a mining town. And as you listened to President Gerard, you could hear the compassion, the care, and the concern in his voice when he talked about being a young boy growing up in Sudbury, where his father and the fathers of his friends all worked in the mines. Images of sick workers sitting in the company doctor's office, the bleak and barren landscape surrounding the town, living with a constant anxiety, as he called it, that his father or the father of one of his friends was going to be injured or killed in the mine. He told how those sights and images stayed with him into his adulthood, and they became the motivation that caused him to become an activist in his local, and they continue to drive him today. He learned at an early age that companies really don't care about their workers, and that workers need someone to fight for them. And that has been Leo's life's work, fighting for the rights of workers. Leo's commitment to economic and social justice was the driving force that stayed with him as he rose through the ranks of the United Steelworkers. From local union leader to staff, from district director to Canadian director, and from International Secretary-Treasurer to today's International President, Leo has never lost sight of what being a trade unionist is all about. Leo has led the steelworkers through a number of mergers, making the USW the largest and most diverse industrial union in North America, and it has been Leo's vision that has taken us outside the borders of the United States and Canada. And under his leadership, we now have strategic alliance agreements with unions all around the world. And in 2008, the USW joined with Unite the Union, the biggest union in the UK and Ireland, to create Workers Uniting, the first global union. Under Leo's leadership, the USW has heightened its focus on reversing the alarming decline of the manufacturing sector and its impacts on the middle class. He has worked to develop strategies to inject the rights of workers into trade agreements, investment priorities, and corporate governance. He has also worked to increase the participation of USW members in the political process. Well, sisters and brothers, last week I was coming through customs from the United States, actually into the United States, and the customs officer asked me who I worked for. And I said, I work for the United Steelworkers. And he looked at me and he said, yeah, I know you guys. He said, your leader is that big guy who's always in the news. He said, he says some good stuff. Well, sisters and brothers, with all due respect to our International President, I think that's the greatest introduction I can give him. Our International President, Leo Gerard, who is the labor leader of our time and does some really good stuff.
I want to start by doing something a little different. I want to read from the Globe and Mail because you need to realize that the two accomplishments that you should take credit for in District 3 that Steve has talked about aren't over yet. I'm convinced if it wasn't for this union and the NDP in Saskatchewan, that the potash company would have been flipped already. But because we've had that announcement yesterday, you shouldn't think it's done. Because here's what the Globe and Mail says on its front page. If any of you have this, take a few minutes to read it and get as pissed off as I am. It says, consider this. I won't read the whole thing. I'm cognizant of what Steve just said. The Harper government has some explaining to do. It has now used the Investment Canada Act twice to overturn foreign takeover of a Canadian company, the only government to ever do so, and this for a party that once ridiculed populist protectionism. Industry Minister Tony Clement announced blah, blah, blah. Then it goes down to say about, and at the end, Canadians and investors around the world will demand answers from Mr. Clement in the coming months. His words or his silence will tell the world whether Canada is truly open for business or ambling back down the path of protectionism. You You know what? The Globe and Mail can kiss my ass. There's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with standing up. There's nothing wrong with standing up for having Canadian corporations that are going to add value to what they make and do it in Canada. What the Globe and Mail doesn't tell us is that 1,687 foreign takeovers have been approved by this government or a Liberal government. And our economy is being hollowed out. I can tell you what it was like, and so can Steve and Ken and thousands of others who are forced on a strike at Vale, Inco, to try and take back gains that were won over 30, 40, and 50 years. And that fight ain't over yet either, because that next round of negotiation is coming to Thompson. We can talk about the fact that there is no Canadian steel company left. If the potash company gets flipped, close to 60% of Canada's mining industry will be in foreign hands. Our lumber industry, our forest industry, is being slowly eroded. Companies are more excited about shipping logs than adding value. You need to understand, and you need to fight for this. It's not enough to come to a conference and to go back and do what you do all the time. We've been trying to build an activist union, one that understands that it's not sufficient to put your dues in and pull the lever every 2 or 3 years and see what coins fall. We have to be seen across this country and across the US and across the world as the union that fights for social and economic justice, not just for our members, but for our society, because if our society goes down, we go down with it. We need to fight for everybody, whether it's doing like the folks did last night, feeding some homeless, or whether it's mobilizing against the flipping of our natural resources. Because if we don't do it, nobody will. Nobody will. You know, you only create real wealth by taking raw material, energy and creativity and engineering and all of that other stuff and putting it together and making something of additional value and then selling that. When we control 30% of the world's potash, and you need potash to make fertilizer. When somebody decides that they can make more money selling that potash to China. And the hell with Saskatchewan farmers that are just down the road 2 miles. What happens to us? When the multinational forest companies decide that they can make more money shipping their log to China or to the United States or Indonesia or somewhere else, what happens to us? When US Steel decides that it will shutter its mills in Thompson and Hamilton, but run its mill in US or in Serbia, what happens to us? Where are those decisions being made? Sisters and brothers, it's well past time that we mobilize to fight for Canadian control of Canadian resources. It's our time.